This is the S1 from Mount to Coast, an ultra road running daily trainer that is built to last for hundreds of miles. But with Mount to Coast being such a new company in the running shoe space, the only question I have is, does the S1 and Mount to Coast as the new kid on the block actually go the distance? All right, so quick disclaimer before I get into the review of the Mount to Coast S1. Mount to Coast did send me the shoe for the purpose of review, but they do not get to review any of this content prior to its release. So the opinions on the Mount to Coast S1 are mine and mine alone. Another thing to note when I am talking about this shoe, I am 5'10" and I weigh anywhere from 165 to 170 pounds on any given day. And then lastly, this shoe is a ultra road running shoe. So for ultra marathons, that 50 kilometers and above or 30 miles and above. But I am someone who runs marathons and shorter all the way up to the mile. So when I'm doing the review and talking about the Mount to Coast S1, just take into consideration that when I ran this shoe and I'm talking about considering it for a running shoe rotation, I'm speaking solely as someone who's reviewing the shoe as a daily trainer for someone who does marathons and faster. And so with all of that out of the way, let's get into the review of the Mount to Coast S1. So really quick, I wanna go over the tech specs of the shoe. The upper is a jacquard engineered mesh upper that is made from, I believe, 100% recycled nylon. You have the midsole, which is the light cell midsole. It is a PIBA blend midsole that's nitrogen infused. The stack height, you have 36 millimeters in the heel, 26 millimeters in the forefoot, so a 10 millimeter offset for the shoe. You also have what's called the zero sag technology. So you can see this rubber kind of design. There's actually a component that was engineered with BASF that exists within this midsole. So it sits right here in the midsole, and it's supposed to help with the degradation of the midsole as you put the miles on the shoe. So basically just helps the shoe not bottom out as you get into those later miles with the running shoe. You also have a TPU heel clip to help for stability in the heel of the midsole, as well as the Go Flow, which is the rocker geometry for the midsole. There's a lot going on in this midsole for the tech specs. And then lastly, Mount to Coast doesn't have listed what type of rubber they have for the shoe. So let's just call it a standard rubber. I got the Mount to Coast in my typical US men's 10.5 standard width, and the shoe fits true to size. It weighed 275 grams straight out of the box. And then lastly, it comes in at $150 US on Mount to Coast website. All right, so with the tech specs out of the way, I wanna go over each of the major components, so the upper, midsole, and outsole of the Mount to Coast. And so we'll start with the upper. Like I said, the upper is that jacquard engineered mesh upper. You have this plastic toe cap through the front that's supposed to help, I guess, protect your toes from stuff on an ultra road race. And then you have your engineered mesh upper running through here. One thing I have to say about this upper is it is extremely breathable. When I got the shoe, it was probably the hottest part of summer, and it was some extremely hot days where I was really worried that any shoe I was gonna wear, just aside from a race shoe, wasn't gonna be enough and that my feet were gonna get hot. But luckily, this upper was extremely breathable, really nice. Coming through the lacing system, you have these heat transfer overlays to help create some stability through the lacing system. You have normal laces, so nothing crazy like the Mount to Coast R1 where you have that like dual lacing system. You just have one set of laces running through the entire lace outlet system. You also have this pull tab on the medial side with two plastic or whatever components running through here that help create some stability and lockdown through the midfoot, especially on this medial side through your arch. It does not exist on the lateral side of the shoe, so only on the interior side. And then the tongue, which is semi-gusseted, is your standard daily trainer tongue. Decent cushion. It isn't too plush, which is nice. I'm never a fan of really plush tongues. It kind of fits that like perfect place for a daily trainer in terms of how thick and padded it is. Now moving back to the ankle and heel counter. This is probably the most over-engineered heel counter and ankle that I've ever seen in a running shoe ever. I literally cannot even push this down. It is so over-engineered for stability to the point that I actually had some issues with the shoe when I tried to run my standard easy paces as well as picking up the pace. I feel like this over-engineered heel counter just led to not allowing so much flexibility and like flexion through my ankle and my heel to where it almost caused some like, I don't know, not soreness, but just discomfort with my Achilles. But I will note that when I started to use this shoe more as a recovery shoe and not so much a daily trainer and slowed the paces down, I really didn't notice an issue with the heel counter. So again, it's plush, it's nice, it's a little too engineered for me, especially trying to use it, like I said, for that marathon and faster as a daily trainer in my running shoe rotation. It's a little too much. But now we'll move on to the midsole. So I'll go over really quick some more components of the midsole. Like I said, Mount Coast is calling this their light cell foam compound. It's a PIBA blend nitrogen infused midsole compound. It feels really good. I show almost little to no wear with the midsole, a little over 50 miles on the shoe. There's that 10 millimeter offset. Again, you have the zero sag technology. So that component that's within here that was engineered with BASF, it's supposed to help with the degradation of the midsole as you move into later miles. I didn't really notice the zero sag in the shoe in running. Maybe I wasn't noticing it, or maybe I didn't notice it because like the shoe never bottomed out, and maybe that's all it's supposed to do. But again, at those faster miles, I didn't really notice anything with the zero sag. Like I could, if you weren't to tell me that something was in the shoe, in this forefoot of the shoe, I would never be able to guess that there was something inside the shoe helping with the overall like structure or stability of the shoe. But again, maybe this shoe would bottom out if that wasn't in there. Who knows? Another thing to note is that Go Flow rocker geometry that exists with the shoe. Never really noticed it. Like I didn't notice that there was a rocker geometry when running those faster paces. So those like standard easy paces for the marathon and like those fartlek runs. I never noticed that like it helped in assisting my turnover. I will say, I think I noticed the Go Flow geometry when I run at more of those recovery paces because I'm running more of that like heel to toe. And I think that's the way they designed the rocker geometry, is more that ultra kind of stride in mind of like you're going to be running more of a standard heel to toe. You're not going to be getting much lift off the ground, and you don't really need like a quick and aggressive toe off when you're running an ultra. So I think that's why I'm not really feeling anything when it comes to the rocker geometry of the midsole. But overall, it's a pretty comfortable midsole for those slower paces. When I picked up the pace to those faster paces, even though this is listed as like a nitrogen infused PIBA blend midsole, I feel like it was your standard daily trainer midsole. Like it didn't really wow me, but it also didn't like underwhelm me. It was just kind of, like I said, your standard daily trainer midsole, which isn't bad. I like my daily trainers to be a little more vanilla. The daily trainer is kind of already one of those like jack of all trades, master of none. So I don't need anything extremely special with my daily trainer, especially the midsole. And then lastly, we'll get into the outsole. Nothing really to report here, which is always good. The outsole does exactly what you need it to. It is holding up pretty well. There's normal wear and tear. I do wonder how many miles you could actually get out of this outsole, considering this is an ultra marathon style shoe. So I'm assuming it's built to really go the distance. I had great traction with the shoe on all different types of running road surfaces. I didn't really get to run it in different weather conditions. Like I didn't get to run it in rain or anything other than that. So I can't really speak to how well the traction works in like wet conditions or muddy conditions. But on pavement and on regular like dry dirt, the outsole held up well and did exactly what it should for a daily trainer. All right, so now that I've gone over the major components of the shoe, the upper, midsole, and outsole, I wanna get into what does it actually feel like to run in the Mount Coast S1. And this was actually a hard one for me to like narrow down what the shoe felt like to run in. I was really trying to figure out like what could I compare it to, because it doesn't really feel like the Pegasus is a daily trainer, and it doesn't really feel like the SL2 from Adidas. Like it was really hard to pin down, and I finally think I figured out kind of what this shoe feels like, specifically this light cell midsole foam. If you've ever run in the New Balance Rebel V2 specifically, where they also had that like, I think it was a nitrogen infused, but there was it fuel cell midsole foam. But basically the Mount Coast S1 feels a lot like the New Balance Rebel V2 if you like sucked all the fun out of the Rebel V2. So all of that like versatility and the pickup and kind of that pop that you get from the Rebel V2 or the Rebel series in general. If you were to take all of that away and just leave that midsole as like a very non-versatile kind of midsole, that's what this shoe feels like. It reminds me a lot of a not fun version of the New Balance Rebel V2, which is not a great thing to say, but that's just what it reminds me of. The Lightcell midsole foam feels great, but it really isn't versatile. The shoe really only shines at really slow paces. And so, like I said, for someone who's looking to add a daily trainer to the running shoe rotation for the marathon and faster, I need something that has a little flexibility and versatility to it. And like I said, with like the Rebel V2, with all the fun taken out, that's kind of what the shoe feels like. All right, so with all of that out of the way, the final question is, would I actually recommend the Mount to Coast S1 for your running shoe rotation, and would I add it to my running shoe rotation as a daily trainer? And the answer is, unfortunately, no. As a daily trainer, I don't think the Mount to Coast S1 cuts it as a daily trainer for marathon and faster training. Even for ultras, I'd be hesitant to say yes, mainly because of that $150 price point. There's a lot of other daily trainers on the market that are $10 to $20 cheaper, maybe even $30 cheaper, that are way more versatile in their running. And then when you get to the ultra space of running, so like ultra marathons, like everything else aside, and we're just talking about ultra marathons, even though the shoe is durable, I've run in some other daily trainers that I've put 600 plus miles on that were $20 cheaper than this shoe. So again, even in that regard, I don't think the S1 really has any advantage over other daily trainers within the running shoe market. I think this is a really good shoe, and I'm really excited to see other brands like Mount to Coast entering the market to help create competition for other brands and keep them, being innovative and trying to push everyone forward. And I'm excited to see where Mount to Coast goes with their shoes. But unfortunately, as a daily trainer, $150 is just way too much money. And like I said, the shoe just isn't versatile enough. It's too much of like a one-trick pony type shoe. And with the R1 being $10 more, I would most likely just pick that almost any day over the S1. Now, when it comes to a recovery shoe, like I've been saying, I've been using this more as a recovery shoe. That maybe I would recommend it as a running shoe for your running shoe rotation, only because a lot of the running shoes that are in the recovery kind of realm of like, you're just looking to plod along and you just want to go slow. You don't need the shoe to be versatile. You just need it to protect your legs and help you recover from those bigger and faster runs. That's where this shoe might be better, only because most of those shoes are like $160 to $180, even $200. So that $150 price point looks a little better compared to like that $160 and above. And the shoe does work really well as a recovery shoe. But again, you only have 36 and 26 on that stack height. So if you're someone who's looking for a recovery shoe with more foam underfoot, this might not be the shoe for you. So unfortunately, as much as I wanted to like the shoe, because like I said, it's always exciting to see new brands coming onto the scene, I think Mount to Coast has a lot of work to do, even in the ultra space, because like I said, there's a lot of daily trainers that are cheaper and just as durable as the shoe. So if Mount to Coast can either figure out how to make the shoe more affordable and kind of separate the gap between the R1 and the S1, put this at 130, and I think my verdict would be completely different, and I would give this a 100% yes, add it to your running shoe rotation as a daily trainer, especially in the ultra world. That's where this thing would shine at like 130. But unfortunately, like I said, at $150 US, it's a no for me.